Okay, thank you very much, Larry and Martina, for really presenting what is EU regulation and what procedures or what steps have been taken so far in order to comply with this EU regulation. So, to briefly highlight what exactly they meant, is the Martina presented the original EU regulation that EU want to practice and want to implement in coffee producing countries, cocoa producing countries, textile producing countries in the Caribbean, and also livestock is also there. As coffee producing country, we will be very much affected by these new EU regulations if we are not able to comply with it, or if we are not able to get ourselves ready to really comply with this new regulation. Probably Larry and Martina, they frequently say accompanying measures. What does that mean? It's to me that the EU regulation is now in place. So what is next for us as a coffee producing country is that because the largest proportion of our coffee is going to Germany, is going to Brussels or Belgium. So it goes through Belgium or Germany to the other European countries. So the largest share among the top 5 countries who are actually taking our coffee are the Germany and Belgium. So since they are part and parcel or the member of this European Union, they will be forced to follow this EU regulation in order to import our coffee. So we have a number of big companies in Germany. There are a number of big companies in Belgium who are actually roasting coffee buying from Ethiopia. So now the EU regulation is there. When we say accompanying measure, is to me that what does this EU regulation is meant for Ethiopia? So we want to contextualize that. We need to bring that EU regulation to the context of our own production system. So the first thing that we did is, okay, this EU regulation is exhaustively listed. So as Ethiopia's coffee producing country, how do we really translate this into our own context? That's the first accompanying measure. Then, okay, so, and the second thing that we've done is, what do we have in hand? So the rules and the regulations, the new regulation is there. As Ethiopia, what do we really have? And what are the gaps that we need to fulfill so that we can safely provide or safely export our coffee to the international market? So we need to see inside, okay, these are the rules, these are the regulations. What does that mean for Ethiopia? And what do we really have in hand? And what do we need to fulfill? And what are the gaps that we have? So identifying our own gaps and identifying our own possible opportunities if we are able to comply with these new regulations. So what do we have? What do we need? And how is it contextualized into our context? The next is opportunities that with whom are we going to work in order to fulfill the gaps that we have. That's why we are now currently working with ITC in bringing to your attention that this new EU regulation is already enacted. And the European Parliament has already endorsed it. And so it's a must for this regulation to be implemented in all coffee producing countries, in all cocoa producing countries, in all the Caribbean countries, So we need to get ourselves ready if we want to just export our coffee to the European Union. So identifying the potential the farmers, donors, identifying the potential partners with whom we're going to work. So we're now currently working with the ITC, with the German embassy, with the Netherlands embassy, and if you remember, the Norwegian embassy is also working with us, and this is our second awareness creation workshop because the Norwegian, is there anyone who came from Norway embassy? Yeah, we would have called them, yeah. So we are trying to work with them in order to at least fulfill the gaps that we have as a coffee producing country so that we can safely comply or export our coffee to the international market. The other one is, okay, we have identified potential partner, we have identified our own gaps, we have identified the opportunities that we have in hand, and then we have to organize the way in such a way that we need to solve our own problems. So that's the programmatic implementation. So that's what we call it accompanying measure. So the main definitions and what does this accompanying measure is contextualizing the regulation, identifying the opportunity, finding out the gaps, identifying people who we're going to work, and then bring into that implementation. So we went to Brussels before the election and the implementation adoption of this EU regulation with the support of ITC. Sumarka is there, the Oromia Cooperative is there, Erkio from the Gajafe is there, and there are also some other people who were not able to join us, of course, but we went there. And we went there to explain, discuss, indicate our own concern as a coffee producing country. If this EU regulation is enacted and implemented in Ethiopia, Ethiopia will be out of the EU market. So the European Union needs to consider the condition and the context of Ethiopia in such a way that coffee can safely be exported to Europe. And this new regulation has to be contextualized and defined in such a way that the countries who are producing coffee or cocoa or whatever it is has to clearly understand and comply with that. So it has to be contextualized. And the other message that we brought to that meeting is that we have a fair trade certification. We have organic certification, we have the REFREC, the RFF certification, we have a number of certifications. How does this EU regulation consider the certifications that we have in hand? So this is also one of the points that we've raised while discussing this very important issue as Ethiopia, as a coffee producing country. And then you know the cooperative certification and the organic certification, fair certification are mainly they were the group certification. But in this new regulation, we are afraid that there is a group certification, rather there is an individual certification that will cost our farmers a lot, and that will they just affect the farming system of our own coffee production system. If we are not able to comply, or if we are not, if this kind of certification is not a group certification or something like region certification. So this is also the concern that we raised in the European Union. Now, what we did there is, as Ethiopia, a coffee producing country, we indicated that Ethiopia is a coffee producing country because this regulation is mainly affecting coffee in a producing country. We have the volume of the production, the volume of the export is steadily or nearly increasing. Even though it is not a linear increasing, but there is a tendency of increasing our own coffee production, productivity, and also the export to the international market. The number of households and the farmers who entirely depend on this coffee is also getting increased. It's more than 4.2 to 4 to 5 million smallholders whose livelihood is entirely dependent on coffee. And also we have shown that Yeah, it doesn't have any problem if we are first or second or fifth in the world as a country, but it's not to me that our being first in Africa or being fifth in the world will not stop this regulation. It will not stop this regulation. So, of course, these are some of the main challenges that we have as a country, because our production and productivity is not to the extent that other coffee producing countries are producing. We're collecting 6 to 7 quintals per hectare, but the other countries, coffee producing countries, are harvesting more than 20 quintals per hectare or 50 quintals per hectare. So this is our own problem. So we need to work on this specific problem so that the coffee in our country can be further increased. Our production system is the problem, our marketing system is a problem, it's a long and a very complicated, quite complicated marketing system is there. And that is also affecting our coffee production system and the livelihoods of the farmers who are producing coffee. So on top of these all problems, if this new regulation is enacted, the Ethiopian farmers, what will be the fate of the Ethiopian coffee producers? That was the main point that we raised to these EU members. So this is what I have already presented. Then, as a CS3D, land clearly indicates that some case studies have been done here in Ethiopia. So, as accompanying measures, okay, these rules and regulations were to be implemented. What potentials does Ethiopia have? What gaps do the country is having? With whom these countries were to work in order to be very safe and will not be affected by these new regulations? So, as Larry clearly indicates, there were about 8 accompanying measures that Ethiopia was evaluating against that. There is advanced integrated framework for mandatory human rights. Particularly, this due diligence is mainly working on human rights abuse and environmental issues. These are the 2 most important points to be considered in this due diligence when we produce our coffee. So it's not only at farm level, it's for all the value chain. At farm level, at processing stations or processing plants, and even at roasting, at the warehouse here in Addis. So for example, value chain, how do these human people or how people are treated? So this is also something that we need to know in order to really comply with this new regulation. This will definitely bring change in our system. So how do we get ourselves ready? Because we have this system in place, our marketing system is very complicated. Our farmers are having less than 0.5 hectare of land. How do we really certify each of these farmers who are having less than 0.5 hectare of land? So who's going to give the cost of this certification? These are some of the questions that we raised to the concerned people. So it will entirely change our system and completely change our coffee production practices. So we have the case study has consulted a number of stakeholders, particularly the cooperatives and the unions. About 10 primary cooperatives and 3 roasters were consulted on in order to really identify the accompanying measures. What do we really have? What are our gaps? How do we to just comply with these new regulations? So about 10 primary cooperatives were interviewed and also consulted, and 3 roasters were also in the list of interview. And the coffee guide in that was entirely developed by ITC, and the ICO has been translated into Amharic, and you all remember that we would like that this and is kindly available here in our office, and it's also available online for everybody who is interested. So the results I want to show from the case studies. So Italy, Portugal, Slovakia, France, Greece, Netherlands, Poland, Germany, Croatia, that means they are all coffee users and they are all members of the European Union. So our coffee directly or indirectly goes to these all coffee European members who are actually using coffee. So Ethiopian coffee is found in Italy. It could be in a single origin or it could be mixed in with other coffee from all over the world. It goes to Portugal, Slovakia, France, Greece, all Netherlands, Poland, Germany, Russia. So these are the potential countries to whom we can export our coffee. But if these rules and regulations is enacted, we're not able to get the chance to export directly to these EU members. Then there are the steps that they have taken in order to understand this. The first one is the assessments, the readiness of the assessment. Okay, the rules is there, the regulation is there, how Ethiopia is getting itself ready. The other one is, what are the concerns, what gaps do we really have? The assessment, the other one is baseline assessments, capacity building. These are something that will be continuing. So we're going to continue in building the capacities of our farmers, the capacity of our suppliers, the capacity of our roasters, if we want to comply and work with these new EU regulations. So regarding to the readiness as a country, what kind of policy do we really have in place? Environmental policies, human resource, human violation policies, or human rights policies. What do we have in hand? And what are the formal or informal systems in our coffee production? And the other one is how we are working, integrating with a number of partners. How do we really optimize the resources that we have and also the opportunities that we got? So these are some of the points in order to really assess the readiness of the country for this new regulation. The other one is, so as Ethiopia, the human resource role has been present, the result has been indicated in this way. I don't want to go to that detail. So this is the evaluation of the case study for Ethiopia as a country. Is Ethiopia ready to implement and to work with this new regulation? The other one is the case study that we learned from Ethiopia is that, okay, Ethiopia is having a number of rules, a number of laws in place. For example, we have a human rights and child labor policy. So is this new regulation consider the rules and this human rights and the child labor policies that we have? This is the most important question. Or are we going to develop another policy for human rights and the child labor to really comply with this new regulation? Or is the one that we have in hand can equally important in this new regulation? So this is the question that we need to ask ourselves. And for example, the Federal Legal or the Law Proclamation number 1156 that was developed in 2019 is working. We are using this policy as a country to not to abuse human rights and child labor here in Ethiopia, whether it is in coffee production, whether it is whatsoever production system. So is this policy is equally be important or can easily be considered by the new regulation? Because we have this policy. Because the EU regulation is mainly focusing, particularly the due diligence, is mainly focusing on human rights. But we have a policy here. Can it be considered by the European Union? The other one is we have environmental policies. Because the due diligence is also mainly considers the environment issue into account. We have this environmental policy. We have the forest policy as a country. We have the Ethiopia water resource management policy as a country. And these policies, they are in line with international laws. In line with international laws. Ethiopia is using policy and developing policy referring to the international laws of environment, international laws of human rights at the child level, international laws on the forest, international laws on resource utilization. So we have these opportunities, but we don't know whether these opportunities will be taken into account by this new regulation. The other one is the corporates and the members' awareness. So they are starting to create an awareness or to bring to the attention of these cooperatives and the unions that this afforestation is a problem in Ethiopia. If this coffee production is continued against forest degradation, what will be the fate of these Ethiopian coffee exporters? So that this kind of issue have already been brought to these cooperatives and unions who were in the list of interviews. So are these cooperatives work according to these new regulations? So there are some opportunities, like for example the European unions, for the Oromia unions, they are actually working in regulating the environment, regulating the forest, and also getting some funds or some money, additional money from the European Union and elsewhere in the world by selling their own carbon. So this is a very good opportunity for us. The other one is that the first accompanying measure that we evaluated our service vis-a-vis the European regulation is that is the due diligence process and the legal requirements there. Do Ethiopian people know that this European Union regulation is coming to or is going to be enacted? So only very few of us know that there is new regulation coming from Europe in order to take our own coffee. So this is one of the gaps, but we need to fill this gap by continuous training and continuous or frequent developing this kind of workshop, so that everybody who is engaged in the coffee production system will be aware of this new regulation. So this is a gap that we have identified, but this can be solved by bringing to the attention of the farmers, bringing to the attention of the suppliers. So we can do this. Ethiopia Coffee Authority will take the responsibility with the unions and cooperatives in order to bring to the attention of all the stakeholders. So this will not be a problem for us. The other one is the supply chain management. How Ethiopian people are treating human resource and environmental due diligence. What are the risks that we have? So in this case, the cooperatives and the union, they working on identifying their own problems. How are they going to just prevent? What are the mitigation procedures in order to solve this? And what are the remediations? And how are we get our fair trade, rainforest alliance, organic standards will be considered in this CS3D. So these are something need to be worked out with other partners. What policies, dialogue, or international coordination and research do we have? So this, I have already indicated that we have a number of policies that can potentially be considered by the European Union. So, of course, some of the policies are very context specific. They are specific to the Ethiopian condition, but we need to bring out them to the level of the international level. So our human rights has to align with the ILO regulations, ILO policy. So these are some of the activities that need to do all that. And we have to also continue on the advocacy work so that everybody will be aware of this new regulation. There are some industry collaboration and stakeholder engagement. So this is one of the typical examples, how we bring all the stakeholders together so that we can work in order to solve the problems that we are in. Producers, suppliers, capacity building and empowerment. That's what I have already mentioned. Ethiopia Coffee Authority with other closest partner, we're going to just build the capacities of our stakeholders, producers, our suppliers, our roasters and also exporters, but there should be some access to finance, there should be market access linkage, For the main questions that we raised in Brussels is that, okay, if we want to comply with this new regulation, the largest effect or all the costs will be paid by the farmers. Because if it is going to be individual certification, the farmers will be the one who is going to be affected. So who is going to cover the cost of certification? The cost of certification, if it is not a group certification, if we are going to go for individual certification, the certification cost will be too high, not too much. So who is going to cover this? Okay, if this rules and regulation is compliant, and Ethiopia is producing coffee following these new regulations, is the European Union ready to pay for the premium prices for the farmers? Because the coffee that we going to export is produced following the new regulations. So the farmers will to just pay too much cost for certifications. So is this coffee that will be sold to the European market can cover back their own cost? Who's going to just pay the premium prices for the Ethiopian coffee farmers? So these are the main points that we raised there, but it has to be discussed, and the product certification cost has to be covered back for the farmers, otherwise our farmers will be completely out of this market. Impact investment and was supply chain and finances, so starting from production up to further export. So a number of costs will be there, but how to cover that costs, how to solve these problems is also something to be discussed. So the system is in place, there is a system there, but we need to have a financial support from elsewhere in order to really support our production system in line with this new regulation. With regard to the environment, with regard to the ecosystem, what do we really have in hand, and how do we really support or fill the gap is also another important issue. But Ethiopia, to some extent, is having a very good opportunity and a comparative advantage to really comply with new regulation, but there are some gaps need to be filled. The transparency, advocacy, and consumer awareness operations, for example, how to trace and track the coffee that is produced in Ethiopia. This is also the most important one, because our coffee marketing system is very complicated. So in the last number of decades, it was not possible to really trace and track back where that coffee is produced, who produced that coffee, how that coffee is processed. But with the vertical integration system, to some extent that problem has already been solved. Still, in this new regulation, consumers in Europe, they want to know exactly how that coffee produced, who produced that coffee, what process it took to really reach the European Union. So we need to have a very transparent system and a digital or a data log, for example, in order to explain each and every product that we're going to send to the European Union. So each farm size has to be digitalized. It has to be, we have to develop a coordinate position for each and every farm who is going to be produced or who's going to send their product to the international market. So these are the summary of all the accompanying measures, or the 8 accompanying measures. I don't want to go to that details, but you need to know exactly what opportunity do we really have, what are the gaps that we need to close up, and with whom are we going to work. These are the very important points as Ethiopia to discuss among ourselves and to bring to the attention of the producers, suppliers, and all other coffee stakeholders. With this, I would like to wind it up. Thank you so much for being with us.